Good morning, all. I'm Kenneth from Program 4, Project 23. One part of my PhD project is to examine the influence of culture on consumer attention to honey labels. This study is supervised and co-authored by my supervisors, Fang, Ludmila, and Thierry. I would also like to thank Dr. Lees, Ms. Rosie, and Mr. Michael for their support in the completion of this study. I never thought buying a bottle of honey can be this hard. I'm sure some of you guys have gotten confused with the amount of honey products that are available in stores. Well, making food purchase decisions can be complex as consumers are often required to find and evaluate a wide range of products that are available in store. Furthermore, complete product information is not always available to consumers at the time of exposure, and often they do not have the opportunity to sample the food product before purchasing them. Hence, consumers are often required to make judgment of the product quality based on product attribute cues presented on the labels. Product labels consist of various attribute cues that can generate consumers' expectation of the product and subsequently influence their satisfaction and purchase behavior. However, consumers are often bombarded with too many information on the packaging labels. Due to time constraint and limited cognitive capacity, consumers are unable to pay attention to all product attribute cues presented on the labels. Some of the labels are either ignored or consumers are not even aware that some of the labels are there in the first place. Research on consumer attention to product labels is limited. Thus, little is known about consumers' attentional responses when they are exposed to multiple product attribute cues. Furthermore, it gets more complex when we consider cross-cultural differences in consumer processing of label information. Hence, this study contributes to the literature by providing an alternative assessment of attention in which examine the types of product label attribute cues that consumers pay attention to, and also the degree of attention given to those cues. Second, we investigate consumers' attention to three major categories of product attribute cues, namely product nature related, product assurance related, and health related cues. Third, we examine to which consumers from Western culture, represented by Australia, and Eastern culture, represented by China, differ in their attention to product attribute cues. The moderating effects of product involvement on the relationship between culture and consumer attention to product attribute cues was also examined. Based on the Hofstede cultural value framework, cultural values, namely individualism and collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, power distance, short and long-term orientation, were hypothesized to have an influence on consumers' attention to three major categories of honey attribute cues. First is product nature related cues. Basically, these are labels aimed to communicate to consumers about the general characteristics of the product. For example, of such labels are brand name, product description information such as honey type specification, purity claims such as 100% pure honey, and serving size. Second product attribute cues is product assurance related cues. Basically, these are information that has been certified and regulated by respective authorities such as the government or 100% lab tested labels. So such labels are country of origin or bioactivity certification. The third form of product attribute cues is health related cues. Basically, this information conveys health and nutritional related information to consumers. Such labels are bioactivity rating and the nutritional table. Individualistic cultures such as Australia stresses the importance of personal goals and rights of an individual person, whereas collectivistic cultures such as China stresses the importance of community and conformity to shared values. Past research has shown that people from individualistic cultures such as Australia prefer explicit and direct form of information as they regard such information as persuasive and informative, whereas people from collectivistic cultures such as China prefer implicit and indirect information as they regard explicit information as aggressive or too pushy. Product nature related cues such as brand name, honey specification is regarded as explicit form of information that communicate basic functional benefits of the product. Hence, some studies have suggested that people from individualistic culture may favor such information. Apart from collectivism and individualism cultural dimension, uncertainty avoidance can also influence consumer responses to product nature related cues. Uncertainty avoidance refers to the extent to which people feel threatened by uncertainty and ambiguity and will try to avoid these situations. Within high uncertainty societies such as China, people have a higher level of tendency to seek for orderliness, consistency and structure, as compared to people from low uncertainty avoidance societies such as Australia. Some studies have indicated that cultures that are categorized by high uncertainty avoidance may react favorably to explicit and direct information, as it will help to reduce uncertainty in their purchase decision. Thus, the collectivism and individualism and uncertainty avoidance dimensions seems to suggest opposite directions for Australia and China comparison. Hence, it can be hypothesized that Australian and Chinese consumers will be significantly different in their attention to product nature-related cues, and the degree of attention given to those cues will be significantly different as well. Power distance cultural value dimension may influence consumer attention to product assurance-related cues. So power distance refers to the extent to which members from a culture accept the inequality of product distribution in the society. People from culture with high power distance, such as China, tend to maintain greater social distance and have more respect for hierarchy and authority. Whereas people from low power distant cultures, such as Australia, tend to value equality in the society. Past advertising studies have found that authority appeal is more accepted in culture with greater power distance as compared to culture with lower power distance. Due to the respect given to power and authority, it can be inferred that Chinese consumer may have a higher preference for labels that are regulated by accredited authorities, such as the government, as compared to the Australian consumers. Also categorized by high uncertainty avoidance, Chinese consumer will be less comfortable with uncertain situation and will be more cautious about purchasing products that they have not consumed before. Furthermore, Chinese consumers were reported to have high level of concerns over food safety due to the frequent food contamination scandals that happened in China. Hence, in comparison to Australian consumers, Chinese consumers are more likely to place importance to the credibility of product information and rely on authorities certified attributes when making purchase decision. Hence, we hypothesize that Chinese consumer will pay more attention to product assurance related cues as compared to the Australian consumers, and will pay a higher degree of attention to those cues in comparison to the Australian counterparts. Long and short-term orientation could also influence consumer attention to health-related attribute cues. Long-term orientation is defined as the ability to foster and display a future-oriented perspective with respect to the past. People from culture with long-term orientation, such as China, place more importance to perseverance and sustain efforts towards slow results, whereas people in culture with short-term orientation, such as Australia, expect immediate results for any given effort. Past research has shown that health-related appeals are pertinent to low-term orientation dimension, as it emphasizes on the repeat consumption of nutritional food products to attain health benefits as opposed to instant benefits. Considering that leading and sustaining a healthy lifestyle is a long-term goal that requires lifelong commitment, it can be inferred that people in societies that are long-term orientated would place more importance to product information pertaining to the health attributes as compared to culture with short-term orientation. Past studies have also indicated that consumers in a high uncertainty avoidance culture, such as China, are influenced more by healthy-related advertising appeals than those in low uncertainty avoidance culture. Therefore, we hypothesize that Chinese consumers will pay more attention to health-related attribute cues compared to Australian consumers, and the degree of attention given to the health-related cues will also be higher. Apart from cultural value dimension, product involvement may also influence consumer attention to product attribute cues. Based on the elaboration likelihood model, consumers who are highly involved in the purchase of a particular product would also pay attention to more of the product information that is presented to them as compared to those who are less involved. Previous research has shown that Asian consumers primarily regard honey as a health product as compared to Anglo-Saxon consumers, who commonly regard honey as more of a breakfast spread. Thus, it is expected that Chinese consumers will be more involved in the purchase of honey product as they have greater consideration of the health implication of consuming it as compared to their Australian counterparts. Therefore, it can be hypothesized that high-low involved Chinese consumer will pay more attention to the three major product category attribute cues, and the degree of attention given to those cues will also be higher. The research stimuli used were Jara honey and wildflower honey, sourced from an unknown Australian brand. It is important to select an unknown brand as product familiarity can affect consumer attention, and we would like to control for that. Data were collected using face-to-face interview with semi-structured questionnaire for both Australian and Chinese samples. A total of 126 samples were recruited. In the questionnaire, consumer attention to product labels were assessed. So basically, we look at the labels they look at and also the degree of attention paid to those labels. Their degree of involvement in honey products were also assessed. So we ask questions such as whether do they regard honey product as important in their diet. Chi-square test and ANOVA analysis were used to analyze the data. So basically, the Australian consumers were recruited at a local shopping center, whereas the Chinese consumer recruited at an Australian merchandise store that is popular among Chinese tourists. This study indicates that cultural differences in attention to product labels can be explained by cultural values such as power distance, uncertainty avoidance, and short and long-term orientation. Specifically, consumers from Eastern culture represented by China, categorized by high power distance, high uncertainty avoidance, and low long-term orientation, will pay more attention to product nature-related cues, product assurance-related cues, and health-related attribute cues when purchasing honey product as compared to consumers from the Western culture represented by Australia, categorized by low power distance, low uncertainty avoidance, and short-term orientation. Product involvement was also found to moderate the relationship between culture and attention to product labels. Specifically, only low-involved Chinese consumers were found to pay attention to nature-related and product assurance-related cues as compared to their Australian counterparts. This finding is consistent with some of the prior studies which found that low-involved consumers will base their quality evaluation on product nature-related and product assurance-related cues such as brand name or country of origin, as these cues are more accessible and easier to process as compared to health-related attribute cues such as bioactivity ratings and nutritional table, where the information is harder to interpret, especially those numbers on those labels. It is also interesting to note that high-involved consumers from both countries do not differ in their attention to product attribute cues. One of the possible explanations is that expertise is generally associated with level of involvement a consumer has with a specific product category. Hence, highly involved consumers would be considerably more knowledgeable than about honey as compared to those who are less involved. Hence, these consumers may adopt a somewhat similar way of evaluating the quality of product. For example, pay attention to certain types of product to assess the quality, regardless of their cultural backgrounds. Lastly, these findings of this study can help exporters formulate labeling design strategies for certain export markets. The results indicate that it is imperative for exporters to strategically include label information that is more salient to specific export markets. Localization of labeling designs can serve as an effective marketing tool that enables exporters to differentiate their products from others and establish niche markets where they can command a premium price. For example, by focusing on the promotion of some of the unique health-related attribute cues, such as high antimicrobial activity found in Australian honey, promoted on via the packaging labels, exporters can be more effective in positioning their products as a high-grade functional food products among consumers from the Eastern culture. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.